You're watching the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Now it's time for the Brent and Austin Show.
Liam Cohen, is that the guy? We're going to do a little special report here on potentially the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why? Because we can. Is it official? No. But, man, they better make it official now after what's transpiring tonight. Like, there's no going back, right? There's no going back for the Jags and for Cohen here. I have one big question. Who put this out there? Who got this out there? Because one thing that happens, it came, I got to believe it's his agent or somebody that has connections to all the national folks, because it hit Schefter, Rappaport, Pelissero, Schultz, like all these guys. You name it. Everybody was jumping in. And unless everybody just piggybacked on the story and said, oh, I got Rossini, like all of them that do this for a living. And I just wonder who put it out there, because whoever put it out there at this time, they kept it quiet, it sounds like, for most of the day. Now it's starting to make some people look a little bad because of the whole situation, or at least get people talking about it. But the most important thing is here in Jacksonville, holy cow, what a 24 hours. Where are we at, actually? It was yesterday, 10 a.m. on our show, on the Brent and Austin Show. We do it 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. But we've now jumped in twice in the last 24 hours with breaking news. Hat tip to Hamby, by the way. He wasn't even in the building. He said, hey, I come in if you want. All right, let's do it. So appreciate Hamby doing that. Appreciate you guys for being on. We'll get to some of the messaging in here. There's nothing super urgent other than I know everybody wants to talk about it. So I was like, well, let's talk about it. And we can do that on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network anytime and on social media as well. So here we are as we kind of check in with what could be the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Liam Cohen. We have a lot of questions, but it looks like we're starting to get a lot of answers. And when I say the last, what did I just do? We're less than 36 hours. So it's about the last 33 hours, which is perfect. Larry Bird number. Rhode Island guy, by the way, in Liam Cohen. So we got some New England ties to this, even with the timing.
Jordan Schultz just reported, sources say Robert Saleh just landed in Jacksonville for what was supposed to be an interview tomorrow with the Jaguars.
This is amazing. So, wow, what do you got going on there? Oh,
that was
wild. That was pretty cool. Like, if you could give somebody a seizure doing that too. All right, so here's the thing. Let's get to some bullet points. And obviously all the national guys are saying he's in the building. They're working on a deal. The other leg of this is the Tampa side of it, where he hasn't contacted them, or finally did with Todd Bowles, according to reports, Jenna Lane and others that cover Rick Stroud, all those that cover the Tampa Bay Bucks and do a nice job. They're saying, hey, there was no conversation back here. And then there was some, but they already knew about it, and it's clunky on that end. I feel like I can explain some of that. I don't think it makes anybody feel better. I don't blame the Bucks fans for being mad. Now, it's kind of a fun little back and forth right now between Jags fans and Buck fans. I get it. If it was the Jags, we'd be bowed up too. But I think you had to do this in secrecy, because if you didn't and it got out, the risk for the Jags was they were going to look bad again, getting denied twice. So if you're going to dance a second time and give it another chance, you had to lay super low. You couldn't risk somebody in the Bucks building even getting this out there. The Jags had already had so much egg on their face and a bad PR day yesterday and the day before, and in this process ever since keeping Trent Baalke, that you couldn't do that. So I get why we got here on that front. I don't think it says who Liam Cohen is. I don't know Liam Cohen. I covered him a little bit in high school when I was back in Rhode Island. He's a Rhode Island guy. I know people that know him, but I don't think painting Liam Cohen about it. I think this is just a tough, clunky kind of business deal that's getting done. So to me, it is what it is. And quite frankly, if the Jags get their guy and this guy's good, I don't give a damn. And nobody else does. There's another element to this, is what a comeback for Shad Khan. I mean, what a comeback. This guy's getting roasted the last couple of weeks, and I'm not saying it was wrong. But what did he do? How do you rebound? How do you recover? What did we say on our shows the last couple of days? Okay, you're in a situation. What's the next step? Now you have to take a step back, make the right move, then make a series of right moves. Well, what has Shad Khan done in the last 24 hours since the news of Liam Cohen? at 10 o'clock yesterday morning came out that he wasn't going to come for a second interview. Mm-hmm. Well, he fired Baalke, issued a statement, and in the last day, got Tony Boselli involved with the interview process along with Ethan Waugh, who already, we believe, was. They bring in Patrick Graham. They, in the meantime, go get or bring over or reconnect with Liam Cohen, which everybody knew they at least had to reach back out. And now they might close the deal. All of that within, again, a 30-hour period. That is the way to move now. That is the way to recover. That is the way to move on and make what hopefully is the right move. That's a convicted move, though. You have conviction in that. See, the one you say, oh, first time Shad Khan's ever. No, it's not the first time Shad's ever done that. Shad was convicted and showed plenty of conviction going to get Urban Meyer. It didn't make it right, but he got his guy. And he didn't let up until he got his guy. That was a long process, if I remember correctly, in that December of 2020, before he was hired in 2021 season. So here it is again where Shad's like, hey, wait a minute now. Listen, I like this guy. I think this guy's our future head coach. We're not going down that easy. Nope, we're firing the GM if he's the problem. We're going to circle back. And, yeah, I don't care if the Bucs gave you $4.5 million and whatever they told you, we're going to make it better. And by the way, hey, Liam Cohen, like Brent said yesterday on the show, don't turn this down again. This is a good job, man.
Yep.
This is a good situation. I tried to say that yesterday. People were like, you're nuts. No, Tampa's a good. No, I think Liam Cohen made a mistake not coming for the second interview, quite frankly.
At least take it.
At least take it and maybe force the move on Baalke, whatever else. He chose not to. It turns out he played it pretty well. He got a raise to Tampa, and now he gets another chance here.
And Jags fans already love him.
But don't turn it down again. And, I mean, this guy's in the pride before he coaches a game. You know, like he was here last year with Kentucky when he was the offensive coordinator. They lost 38-35 in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, by the way. And this dude's already 1-0 and hasn't even signed with the Jags yet to be their head coach. He got Baalke out. He might be 2-0 in 2 days. The Jags already had 2 losses in 2 days earlier this week. They lost Ben Johnson, and then we thought they lost Liam Cohen. It's a wild turn of events. I've had multiple people say to me, hey, is this the craziest 30 hours in Jags history? 24 hours. Amby, just to let you know, I think Terry's in or getting in.
All right.
So just double check on that. But is this the craziest 24, 30 hours in Jags history? And I would remind folks of this. Back in 2012, the Jags fired Jack Del Rio, or 2011? I think it was December of 2011. Fired Jack Del Rio and sold the team in one news conference. Like, that was a crazy day. But this rivals it over the last 30 hours. This whole transgression of what has taken place. And where do we land with it is going to be the interesting part of what we think will be Liam Cohen as the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I think if you take all the drama out of it over the last 24 hours or so, this is where a lot of people wouldn't have minded to land anyway, right? They wanted to land here. And Liam Cohen, even with the Ben Johnson stuff in play last week, I think some wanted Cohen. Now, a lot, let's be honest here, wanted Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson ends up going to Chicago. This isn't just like second fiddle, though. I think there's a lot of reason to like Liam Cohen. Heck, we even talked about today, if Liam Cohen's out of the picture, we think there's a lot of reason to even like Joe Brady. There's a lot of the same attributes around these guys. But look at the resume on Cohen now. Bucs offensive coordinator just 1 year. Kentucky offensive coordinator in 23. I mentioned the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. The LA Rams, before that, he wasn't actually the offensive coordinator with the Rams. We got to fix that, Weber. He was a staffer with the Rams for a few years, but I don't think he was the offensive coordinator in 22. I don't think he ever got to offense coordinator that. Maybe I got to double check that myself because he spent a few seasons with the Rams. 39 years old and 4th in points this year for Tampa, 3rd in yards. But I think the biggest thing.
He was in 22.
He was the offensive coordinator?
Yes, because he replaced KOC.
Okay, Kevin O'Connell. You're right. My bad. The 3rd in yards is significant, but here's the most significant one in my opinion. 32nd the Bucs were 2 years ago in rushing the football. They were 4th this past season. And by the way, they were good a couple years ago before Cohen got there. They made the playoffs, right? Won a playoff game. That was the year they beat the Jags like on Christmas Eve. but he made them better in their running game. Did you say Terry's on?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet? Okay. I might have to troubleshoot that a little bit. So
text me his number.
I will do that. And we'll also get to some of the comments, by the way, in the chat in just a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of people saying, Shad, forget everything I ever said about you.
Is that where everybody stands? Pretty happy with it?
I've
They've even forgiven Tony Boselli so far.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was an interesting. Do we know who kind of put that out there, that Tony was going to be a part of the search going forward this afternoon?
I forget who that. I forget who put that out. I think where I saw it first was Jonathan Jones from CBS.
Okay.
I think that's where it was. So hey, I just sent you Terry's number, and if you can work out with him. Let me just finish this, folks, so we can try to get some more information on Liam Cohen, which we're doing. Hey, the other thing is I'm not sure if we're live on the stream. I don't know how we do that in there, but Winkle says we're not live on the stream part, just on social media.
We're just on social
which we can do that if we figure out how to do that. I'm not sure we know at this time of night how to do that or not. So we'll check into that on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network, but obviously on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch as well, as we've got it covered. You just sent me the text, by the way, not Terry. Hamby, make sure you send the right guy the text, and then we'll be able to try to get him on. So anyway, any word, idea, interview committee is it Shad or just Tony or the president get involved now? No GM. I don't know who everybody is, but we think it was Ethan Waugh and Balky and Shad in the first go-round, and now you add Tony to the mix because Balky's out, Ethan Waugh, Shad, and could Mark Lamping be involved as well? Maybe. I don't think we know any of that. So we'll maybe learn more. And at this stage, I'm not really sure how much of that matters. It's more a matter of, hey, can you seal the deal, get the guy, and get the right guy? Like, listen, you can get excited about Liam Cohen right now. The idea is that's going to be the right guy. You hope it's the right guy. It's got to be the right guy. Like, that's the bottom line. We know that. But there's, hey, no reason not to be excited about a turnaround and excitement of hiring a new coach, about the last 24 hours, how you pivoted so quickly, and maybe there are other things to be able to fall in line, fall in place. And I'm going to say this until, just people start throwing stuff at me and tell you to stop saying it, okay? And this is this. You can remove Trent Baalke from being a GM. You can hire Liam Cohen if you want. That does not solve all the issues, in my opinion, of the Jacksonville Jaguars. There are more issues. You can hire Tony Boselli, and I think he helps fix some of those things, or at least will be the guy to help fix some of those things. Some of these things are not just position put in play. Some of these things are almost institutional, from how you want to go about things, your vision, your mission statement, the transparency, your messaging. Like, those are still important things here to me. And I will continue to remind folks of that. And we won't know that overnight. It might take 6 months. It might take a year. It might be in the middle of the season. It might be right away. Who knows? But those are some of the things that I believe still need to be fixed if this guy and this next regime and this front office and this franchise is going to be successful. So there's a lot to it still. Such a negative Nancy, Brent. I am not. But I do think you can't just end it there. Guy can run an offense. Great. That's not the only thing. Here's what's interesting about this move, and I think we talked about this way back when Doug Peterson was fired or about to get fired, or what the Jags might do next. And I think we have had many shows and hours a day where we talk about this conversation, but I think it's worth now getting to the point of, hey, how do you land on a guy like Liam Cohen? And how do you land on a 39-year-old play caller? And I believe because it was the only thing, in part, that Shad hasn't done yet. So why might he be enamored with that? Well, he hasn't done that. If you look back at his history, Mike Mularkey is a veteran, obviously an offensive guy. Gus Bradley, defensive guy, kind of that young, up-and-coming. I don't know about super young, but definitely the hot name on the defensive side of the ball coming out of the Legion of Boom. Then you change around and you go Coughlin Marone. That's a totally different setup. That's new. And then you go Urban Meyer. Oh, that's outside the box. That's different. And then you go Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning coach, second go-around guy. Maybe this guy can do it. And he did for a little bit. But now you say, okay, what haven't they done? Well, they haven't done something that has worked in a lot of different places. Places like the Rams, places like Cincinnati with Zach Taylor, places like Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. They haven't gone after the young, kind of hot shot play caller that hasn't had a chance to be the head man yet, but can make the most out of your offense and your franchise quarterback. And that is what we zeroed in on from the jump. We figured, okay, that's what they're going to do this time around. And it looks like that's what they've wanted to do all along. They had 5 offensive guys, 5 defensive guys. 4 of those guys were 35 years old, 36 years old, 38 years old, 39 years old on the offensive side. Then there was Todd Monken. They were going young offensive guy if they had their pick. Couldn't get Ben Johnson. Maybe that was their number one choice. Could it be this instead with Liam Cohen? We think it might. Albert Breer saying more detail on the Cohen situation. The Bucs offered a 3-year deal to make him their highest paid coordinator in NFL history. And we heard that was about $4.5 million. It was contingent on him not taking the second interview with the Jags. Okay, so that answers a question of why didn't he take the second interview with the Jags? Well, because he had to sign that deal, which is the reason for the secrecy of the Jacksonville visit. And that explains some things. But again, I don't blame Cohen for this. I actually put a little bit on Cohen yesterday in the show. People got on me about it. I was like, I think he's making a mistake. Give me an update, Hamby. What you got? Do we need to reach out to Terry? Have you been in touch with him?
He's buffering right now.
Okay, good deal. Thanks. I didn't want to leave him hanging. I appreciate him joining us here in a little bit. And by the way, this is a connection I have in Rhode Island through a couple of friends that knows Liam Cohen really well, and kind of gives you a little bit of the background of the Liam Cohen story. And so I'm interested to talk to Terry about that from. Well, he's a Hall of Famer at the University of Rhode Island. Cohen stopped, by the way, the early days, before the NFL days. If you don't know the full landscape of Cohen's rise, which is a pretty fast rise. He was a quarterback at UMass. He spent some time coaching at UMass, Brown, University of Rhode Island. And then he started to go, I think he went to Maine right after that. And he actually was on the staff with Shane Waldron. And Waldron is the one that told McVay about him. From everything I've read, that, hey, you might want to get this guy involved. He gets involved with the Rams organization for a few years, part of that Super Bowl championship with the Rams. And then he goes to Kentucky, and then he goes back to the Rams, and then he goes to Kentucky again, and then he ends up at the Bucs. It's a guy that's jumped around a little bit as he continues his rise. But I do think it's interesting when people give that as a negative thing for him jumping around. I think it's interesting that Kentucky took him back a second time, and so did the Rams. So they didn't see it as a negative thing. You cool, Weber? Good deal. I don't know if you were waiting on me for something. Very good. Thank you. Hey, folks, this is like live. We're trying to figure it all out on the fly. We also don't want to miss anything. So the chat's always very good that if I'm going to miss anything and I got to jump on TV for breaking news, you let me know, because that's the next step. if this thing really does get done, which, we're going to continue to check and see. But I would be, if the deal is done tonight, it could be done tonight, but I don't know if we'll know that tonight, at least from an official standpoint. I think the national guys will tell us, or maybe we do get word, but I don't think they'll confirm until tomorrow. It would be my guess. I'm just trying to figure it out. It's been a wild week. Let's go back to that. I mean, what a week. The 30 hours here in Jacksonville have been unbelievable, unlike many things we've seen, or anything we've seen. But I do think it's important to note on that, the turnaround, the recovery. Wow, that's big. If this lands, this is really a big deal for Shad Khan. He has really saved this thing from a public perception standpoint. We won't know for a while if he really saved this thing with the hire. Did they rush? Did they make a panic even higher here? Did they panic to fire Balky? Well, there was no such thing as you can panic and make the wrong decision firing Balky. They didn't do it soon enough. But did all of this kind of panic, instead of taking a full step back and saying, hey, let's interview Brady, and let's interview Monken again, and let's interview Mike McCarthy, and let's bring in, we got Saleh and Patrick Graham. I mean, Saleh apparently reportedly has landed. That's not true? Okay. Are they saying he's not coming anymore? Anything on that? He's supposed to interview tomorrow. So it would make sense if he was getting in tonight at some point. But Michael Silver says Robert Saleh did not, in fact, fly to Jacksonville today as he waited for developments to unfold. So
thanks, Jordan Schultz.
And Michael Silver says, I expect the 49ers to rehire Robert Saleh as their defensive coordinator soon. And the story on Saleh is he's going to get a record contract from the Niners to be their DC. The other story I've been saying, where everybody's linked Saleh to, hey, he's going to come in and he's going to be the defensive coordinator. And, oh, wow, that's awesome. We get Saleh as the defensive coordinator. We get Liam Cohen as the head coach. And I've been saying all week, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Saleh was in Jacksonville or going to come to Jacksonville to get the head coaching job.
And that's it.
That's it. I think if he was going to be a DC, it's going back to San Fran. We've been saying that for the last couple of days anyway. That's everything I can gather, too, and it makes sense because they're going to pay him a record deal. It's not like the Jags are going to be like, okay, we'll even pay you more than that. Maybe they would, but the money doesn't get in play here. Now the opportunity for Saleh to go back to a place that he was a DC, familiar with that staff, rather than being unfamiliar with a guy like Liam Cohen. Now, from the Jags' point of view, it made perfect sense if you can do that. What I think we have to keep an eye on, did the Jags interview Patrick Graham just to get at least the lay of the land on him for future down the road opportunity? Obviously, to meet the Rooney Rule, which they did prior to all of this Liam Cohen stuff, they did meet the Rooney Rule because they interviewed Saleh last week in person and Patrick Graham in person today. But do they want him to be the DC? Could they talk him into that? Would he be willing to do that? I think that's the one. I tweeted that about a couple hours ago, too. I think watch Patrick Graham for the DC. Now, that's something to keep an eye on. What we don't really know is a lot about, hey, Cohen's staff, who's he going to bring, who's he going to get. We'll see. I think there's a lot of conversation about Spytek, the GM. He has not signed with the Raiders. But the Jags have to go through a process there now. He can't just say, hey, let's go get Spytek. I want to be, he can say that, but that's going to take time. So now will Spytek, who was rumored to be ready to go to the Raiders, will he do an about turn and want to join Cohen in Jacksonville? Keep in mind, that would be for the same position. That's not like he's going to be an assistant GM. Go work with Brady and the Raiders and everybody else, or come to Jacksonville. But important to note, you have to fulfill the Rooney Rule even in the GM spot. So you have to go through this whole process because the Jags didn't have one open until yesterday afternoon. So you can't just move on that. Nathan Dean shared this with me earlier today, which is kind of funny. So he sent this this morning or this afternoon. And he said, sorry if I missed this on the show, but there's a reason. Is there a reason there's a random private jet flight going from Las Vegas to Tampa to Jax all today when Spytek only, quote, agreed to be the Raiders GM, but nothing signed announced by Las Vegas?
Could have been Graham.
It could have been anything.
No, that's true.
It doesn't mean just the one private jet. It's always got a Jags coach on it, right? But it is funny. He just hit me back a short time ago. He said, Brent, the jet. Maybe he was onto something, right? And he said, too, the craziest offseason and the craziest 24 hours in Jags history. And maybe so. But again, I do remind people that news conference was pretty wild when they sold the team and fired Jack Del Rio all in one with Wayne Weaver. It'd be tough to top that one, in my opinion. Although, as somebody reminded me today, a little bit of that was, a little bit that had like we had known that they were talking to sell the team for a couple of weeks. The press conference just landed the same bit of news. Hey, give me an update on Terry, or should I let him off the hook?
We're trying one more thing.
Okay.
Send him a fresh link, and we'll try this.
Okay. Yeah, it might have been a bad link that I sent. I never know that. That's why I always hate to jump on the show and then try to figure it out during, but I appreciate you, Hamby, trying to figure this out on the run. And if Terry can hear us, we appreciate him trying to wrestle through some of that as we get a little bit more on Liam Cohen. And, hey, there are a lot of things on Cohen. You know, I'm going to bring up this guy does a good job, I think, putting stuff out there. And I'm trying to get him on board a little bit, too, with some of the stuff we're doing. Maybe we'll have some news on that in the future. But I think Daniel Griffiths does a nice job at spitting out some of the numbers about a variety of things on the Jags. And here's what he said on January 20th about Liam Cohen's offense. Third in screens this past year. The Jaguars were 17th. First in screen yards and touchdowns. Man, if we could run a screenplay in Jacksonville, I used to scream like crazy about the screenplays. We've got better at it, but still not good. First in yards per carry out of the shotgun. Jaguars were 21st. Fifth in motion EPA per play, which obviously is a big thing now in the NFL. Jaguars were 29th. So it's obvious they like the creativity. And one thing about Cohen that I really like is that he didn't stick to his scheme with the Bucs this year. He made it the players fit, or his scheme fit the players instead of the players fit the scheme. You'll hear him say this a lot. If he is introduced this weekend at a news conference, I think you're going to hear him say players, not plays. Players, not plays. But I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people do, because a lot of people get stuck on the scheme and try to insert player to their scheme. Did we just have an experience on the defensive side with that, with Eric Armstead, where he shouldn't have played where he was playing most of the year? All right, I think we have Terry Lynch in now, and he's been very patient. And we're in that South Kingston proudly. I didn't know if it was going to be a Rhody Ram or a South Kingston. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you, Brent? Thanks for having me.
Great to be with you, and thanks for taking the time and showing some patience. We got to get people on the video side of things as we have this streaming network. But all right, hey, you know Liam Cohen. You're a Rhode Island guy. He coached at Rhode Island in 2011, but I think your ties go even deeper than that with his family. And if people don't know, Tim Cohen was a coach in Rhode Island for Salve Regina, and also a highly successful high school coach, LaSalle Academy in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. So it's in the blood a little bit, right, Terry?
Absolutely, and you go back to Liam's grandfather. He was a football coach too, and I go way back with Liam's dad. Tim was an assistant at Cumberland High School when I went there. So, and my dad and kind of mentored Tim a little bit. So, and I've known Liam since he was born. His mom was a teacher in the South Kingstown school system at the high school, so I used to deal with her a lot. And he'd be a great choice. I hope it all works out.
Well, it's been pretty wild. We've been texting back and forth the last couple of days. I thought we were never going to talk to you again for a bit there, Terry. And then all of a sudden, hey, I got to circle back on this thing. Pretty wild. But I was interested in your response, I think 2 days ago when we were texting, or maybe it was yesterday morning. I said, hey, he's not coming back. And you were kind of like, oh, man, what? He's not going to take it. I kind of felt the same way, like, oh, man, he's going to stay in Tampa. And is this an opportunity missed to be a head coach? Because it feels like, from what you folks say and other people that I've talked to throughout the league and even back home in Rhode Island, this guy's been destined to be a head coach from the start.
I mean, you talk about a guy that's grown up with it. I mean, from the day that he could open his eyes, a football was right next to him, because that's what his dad did, and that's what his dad was all about. And yeah, I think this is his destiny to be an NFL guy. He always wanted to play in the NFL. Wasn't good enough, but you knew that he had that knack to be a good football coach, because everything that he did, when I watched him play at UMass, when I watched him play at LaSalle Academy, when I watched him play in the youth leagues in South Kingstown, you could see that he had it, whatever that was that it had, And for him to be able to ascend to this level, like I said to somebody today, I mean, talking about it, there's only 32 of these guys in the world, and if you can ever have an opportunity to be one of those guys, I think you got to jump at it.
Yeah, you said the things that you say that you could tell when he was playing football, even as a player. To me, that strikes like IQ, right? I mean, a guy that kind of just knows the game. And that's a coach's kid, too. Right? I mean, you see that. You've been around sports a bunch. But he's a coach's kid, and he knows that part of the game. He sees the game through that lens, it feels like.
Always has, and always has been, on that edge of, making his own checks at the line of scrimmage, even back in high school, and making checks at the line of scrimmage in college. And then when he came to us at URI, and I say us, I've been affiliated with that program for a long time. So, and being able to talk to him and watch him coach and work with kids and talk to him on the side, he really knows the game. And it's important to him, and he wants to be, among the very best. Always had when he started coaching. he used to say, that's what I want to be. I want to get to the highest level that I can. And, it's just taken off from him. I mean, I remember he was going to go to Holy Cross as an assistant. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he got hooked up with Sean McVay out with the Rams. And then he went out there, and that has really kind of catapulted him to where he wants to be.
Well, he's getting a chance maybe to stay in Florida. You think that's important to him as well? I mean, he's got, I think, a couple kids, a wife, and dad's down here now, right? Or at least part-time, kind of floats back and forth between Rhode Island and here?
Yeah, I think he's down in near that Tampa area. I'm not sure if Florida is like that he worries about staying in Florida, but I think, if you're up here today when it's 14, Florida's a better place to be than in New England. Right?
Yeah, and by the way, no state income tax here, so that hefty contract that he's about to get is going to reach a little bit longer. It's funny. I'm from Rhode Island. I covered, again, I was working in Providence at the time and covered Liam when he was making a 4 consecutive state championship run. I think they won 2 of them, lost 2 of them, but LaSalle was in the state championship 4 different times. And I'm trying to think back of my Rhode Island history. It's not like it's a great coaching pedigree in terms of landing in NFL or the football world, right? I mean, we certainly have some that go to Brown or UMass or Rhody or some of those places, but I mean, is he going to be the first guy to come out of Rhode Island that would land an NFL job? I can't even think of anybody.
He might be. I'd have to rack my brain a little bit there. He might be. He might be the first one. I mean, you got guys with Rhode Island ties. Darren Rizzi.
Well, there you go. Good one.
Was interim, but he's a New Jersey kid, right? But
yep.
He went to URI, so he was with the Saints as the interim coach. I don't know where he's trying to land somewhere, probably as a special teams coordinator. So, but as far as going from the high school ranks, he might be the guy.
Yeah, he might be. How much have you paid attention to him in terms of just watching the Bucks play? Or, I mean, do you lose track when you know a guy, but also, hey, you're doing your own thing, and Saturdays now he's playing, he's calling plays for Kentucky, and then he's with the Bucks. These guys are moving at a pretty rapid pace. Do you try to watch him from afar? And I guess the piggyback part of that question, when you watched him up close in 2011 when he was at Rhode Island, and you come all the way to now, some 13, 14, 15 years later, can you see the growth?
Oh, absolutely. You can see it in the stuff that he's doing, the play calling that he's into, the innovation that he has offensively, being his own, boss, so to speak, on as the coordinator. Obviously, he's got people around him and people that are helping him and influencing him, and that other people that he's talking to. But you can see that it's his niche. And I've always followed him because he's, like I said, he's a kid that when he was 4 or 5 years old, throwing football on the beach, over here at Narragansett Beach with his parents and stuff like that. So we wanted to try to get him to play at Rhode Island, but he wanted to get out and he wanted to go somewhere else and end up going to UMass. But I've always followed his career, always stayed with him. I am a co-director of the big New England football clinic, and Liam has spoken there a couple of times. So we've always been able to connect there as well. So it's just great to see a kid like that. I say a kid, I mean a guy like that, to be able to ascend to where he is.
Absolutely. Terry Lynch, Hall of Famer at the University of Rhode Island, obviously knows the Cohen family real well, and Liam, watch him kind of grow up. And hey, we've been appreciate you texting back and forth a little bit, and also jumping on here just kind of on a spur of the moment thing. But I think the folks here in Jacksonville are pretty excited that Liam Cohen could be, I say, the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, I'm hoping the same because he deserves it, and we'll be rooting. We'll be a Jacksonville Jaguars fan.
All right. Well,
and I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on.
You bet. Thanks. All right. Be good and stay warm, by the way. You'll have more Jags, but my mom's a Jags fan back there still, too, though. So if you see another sweatshirt around her hat, it's probably her.
All right. We'll grab her. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry. That's awesome. Good to get a little background on Liam Cohen there, and I listen. This guy just want to watch Jaws. Yeah, listen, I had an accent like that too at one point. All right, I was saying this morning on the show. I was listening to Liam talk today in the Kentucky video that we have, and I'm like, where's his accent?
Those 2 years in Kentucky kind of...
I guess he changed it a little bit because he's been a New England guy for a long time. It's hard to lose that accent now. I tried like heck for a long, long time. It still comes back once in a while. But, hey, there's something else that I haven't mentioned yet because we watched that video for the Kentucky video. And what we did is we had the folks at Kentucky were kind enough to send us a little mic'd up. Just a bunch of B-roll is what we wanted video, but they gave us some mic'd up stuff of him at a practice. And I found it really interesting because how many times have we talked this year that we thought the O'Connells of the world, maybe it's the McVays of the world, maybe it's the Harbaughs of the world, they're pumping up their quarterback. And it's like, well, Doug, who I don't think, I think it was kind of wrongly perceived most of the time, that it was like he was hammering Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he was. I just don't think he was pumping him up publicly. Who knows what he was saying mic'd up on a practice field? But he wasn't doing that. And we were seeing other folks around the league doing that. Well, my thought watching Cohen, at least in that Kentucky video, and that's in the college game.
Want to watch it again?
I thought he was very much like that. We have some of the sound up too. Yeah, take a little glimpse of this when he was at Kentucky, and I want you to just hear the tone, right? It's a lot of positive affirmation. And I don't know if we're living in a world where these guys need it. They get hammered left and right, criticized all the time. Is this part of the equation of the young guy relating to the quarterback, knowing how big of a deal it is, the weight on their shoulders, and not being the old guys like, well, we had to go through this, and you've got to do, like, that coaching hard has kind of turned. Not to say you can't coach him hard. You got to tell him the truth, but it's the tone almost. And I picked that up with Cohen. I thought he had some of that. Take a listen in.
Get the ball back right here, guys. They have not stopped us yet, have they? Have they stopped us yet? Not once. Not once. Let's go finish this thing the right way, take care of business, play after play. We'll run it down their throats. Let's get after it. Bring it up. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Here we go. Offense on three. 1, 2, 3. Offense. Good job, guys. Let's go.
Give him a chance. Hey. Good job. Good. Left hash, ones.
Doing matchups.
Yeah, and then just, what did you think that was a flat route? I got you. It's all good. Just say, give that thing a hitch, and then you don't like it, boom, snap on out. All right? Coaching moment. So hold on the ball real quick, on the ball. How come we went Lou there? Yeah, so let's just go Ray, so we have the back, because the back's, they're not going to be able to see it. You know what I mean? So go 3 by 1. You tell me what told you to go Lou.
Safety off the hash.
All right, good.
Didn't have to make all the blitz calls.
Hey, no, you see, that's the case. Now, that's the tough one now. Do it. Let's hit it again. Yep. 300.
So there's a little bit of it, and there were a lot more of that. But did you hear the same thing I kind of heard there? Yeah. You know, it's like just like the and listen, I don't want to over dramatize this stuff. I really don't. Oh wow, you know, he's like, oh listen, him coach. I really don't like to do that. I'm just telling you that's a conversation point that we had a lot. And when I saw that video, I wasn't even looking for it. It just kind of was like, okay, I want to see his style a little bit. Mm-hmm. And what I'll be honest with you, what I question that Delphonic says he doesn't have a Rhode Island accent. He doesn't. I don't know how he doesn't have a Rhode Island accent. Because that thing is thick, man. It's hard to get that out of the way. But it doesn't sound like he's got one. And maybe that's part of how good of a communicator he is, too, right? Like, you've got to be able to get rid of that. Maybe he thought I wonder if he had to get rid of a little bit of it to be a coach at the next level where he wanted to go. I certainly felt that way coming out of when I was getting into broadcasting. I was like, dang, if I'm not going to work in New England, I better get rid of this thing. You know? So what I wonder about these guys, 39-year-old Liam Cohen, 35-year-old Joe Brady, 36-year-old Kellen Moore, and 38-year-old Ben Johnson. And I wondered the same thing. How are they, I wonder a bunch of stuff. How are they at leading the team? how are they going to transition to you're being a leader of a team, but also you're calling plays and you're that offensive whiz? Like, there are stories like that. Ben Johnson, man, he loves being that offensive whiz, right? Like, stay out of my way. I want to do this. This is what I love to do. He's like a doctor, just a mad scientist. Well, are you going to give that up? Are you going to be able to give that as much attention? Are you in your uncomfortable spot if you're not doing that? Like, he looked good at his press conference, by the way. I said this morning.
Yeah.
Thought he was very organized. I think organization is huge. Is Liam Cohen organized? I don't think the Jags would be interviewing if he wasn't, but I think that's important. How does he lead? How is his messaging? How does he balance what he's trying to do on offense and teaching that and calling that with the head coach skills? That is obviously something that Doug Peterson got himself in a situation the last couple of years. He felt comfortable handing it off to Press Taylor for a variety of reasons, but one of them saying, hey, I feel better if I'm watching over this whole thing and not calling plays. We've seen it blow up in Nathaniel Hackett's face, right? Where it didn't work that he could do both. So I think these are real questions until we see him do it, and that's not going to get answered at a press conference, by the way. That's going to get answered in September, October, November, and December. So those are just some of the questions that come to me with the younger guys. Can they relate to players? Absolutely. Can they lead players? Oh, that's a different story, right? And can they lead the organization in all the things that you need to do? The messaging on the mic, the transparency that I think you need here, and the relationships in the building, outside the building, all those things that I think are also important at being a leader in a billion-dollar business that come with the territory. Different than being an OC, different than being in college. These are different things that he hasn't handled before. Neither has Ben Johnson. Neither has Joe Brady.
Yeah.
So these are all things that are going to be question marks until you get them answered. What you hope is he learns along the way. He's a fast learner, and he's got a lot of the qualities that kind of land you on a guy like Sean McVay and what he's done. Kevin O'Connell, he's been able to do it. Zach Taylor, he was able to do it. And then there's one other thing that's really important here, because he probably doesn't want to deal with the defense. You better make sure that guy's good.
Right. And Brent, this goes back to what we did at the very beginning as soon as Doug was fired, is we looked at the most successful offensive coordinators in the last 10 years that then went on to become first-time head coaches, and the track record wasn't good. We did a 10-year sample, and the first one was Adam Gase, and there was a couple hits in there, like guys like LaFleur, but the majority of them were not hits. It's because, try to be in their shoes. You got to call offense and continue calling plays because that's your bread and butter. That's why you're getting the job. But then you have another side of the ball, two other sides of the ball, special teams and defense, and you're a first-time head coach. If you didn't call plays to begin with, just being a first-time head coach, there's a ton going on there that you've never experienced before. This is another reason why, of these guys, none of the young guys, none of them have been a head coach anywhere. It's not like they've been a head coach in college or a head coach at any other spot. Like they've never done it. Not to say they can't do it, but there's a huge learning curve. You always think about how GMs and head coaches talk about the learning curve for rookies, right? Even for Brian Thomas Jr., we heard it a lot. Going from the college to the end, it's a different game. It's a different game. Well, I would imagine it's a different game just going from coordinator to head coach, right? And that's why we haven't seen much of a great track record as far as leading men and being that leader. That's another area. Especially for these guys that are so-called geniuses. Sometimes there's good so-called geniuses, the McVays and the LaFleurs, and there's also the geniuses that haven't worked out, the Gases, the Mikey McDaniels. And the good thing about Cohen or whoever we hire, if it's that offensive mind, in my opinion, is the time. Because we talked about almost every day that this is going to be a big-time guaranteed contract as far as years go, because Cohen's probably, if he's wise, saying, hey, I want to open up the stadium. I want that as much of a guarantee as it can be as a head coach. I want to open up the stadium in 2028. Obviously that cannot be 100% guaranteed, but he wants that out there and stated, because it might take a little bit of time.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think it's interesting. I think he walks into a great situation. This is, if we want to go back, and some folks just jumping in, probably Well, hopefully you listen 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. We're on every day with Austin Lane as well, former Jags player, UFC fighter. He's not in with us tonight. This is Jason Hamby. I'm Brent Martineau, Action Sports Jax 24/7 Network. I'm probably have some new folks in. But, we talk about this every day, and we say, hey, one of the things I've said, I thought Cohen made a mistake turning it down.
Right.
I thought it's come out now that was a Monday. I think Albert Breer said it was a Monday deal where, hey, the Jags were calling. And they were like, wait a minute, we want to keep this guy. Let's ante up. Let's pay him more. Okay, cool. But as long as you don't take the second interview. Doesn't take the second interview. So was that the reason why? Or was it really because of Trent Baalke?
Right.
Right? So, but then I said, I was like, at the time, we didn't know all that. It just looked like it was Baalke driven. Don't even take the second interview. And I'm like, wait, that's a mistake, man. Mm-hmm. Like, this is an opportunity here. You got to at least vet it out. So then on top of that, you get all this Baalke fired, Shad goes after him, and now like you can't not take the job, really. Like if you're Cohen. I mean, we've got all this smoke flying around. The Jags have to land him, and he's got to get the job. But I just thought this was a little bit of a mistake, but I get the choice. I respected it. To say, hey, I feel like pretty good in Tampa, and $4.5 million is a pretty good reason to come back as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what's going on in Jacksonville. I respect all that. I still just thought it was a mistake, even with Baalke in place, quite frankly, that he didn't take this opportunity. Because here's the deal. It's a good opportunity. Before Baalke got fired, I think he could have helped move Baalke anyway.
Right.
But now, obviously, Baalke out of the way, let's go through all the reasons why it's a good job. And you just brought up with one that nobody's bringing up, but we have for the last couple of weeks. Very few times in this business do you get an almost guarantee that you've got a 4-year deal.
Yep.
Now, nothing's guaranteed fully. We just saw what happened in the last 3 days here, in the last 24 hours. Mm-hmm. But I think this is very much, hey, you got an opportunity here to open up a stadium in Jacksonville. We are not going to be able to hire a guy if we're not playing a home game in 2027.
Right.
Like, that's going to be tricky. 2026, well, you're going to give him at least 2 years or 3 years at least, right? So then he's basically a 4-year guarantee. 4-year guarantee in my estimation, or as close as you can to getting one. And I'm going to give you something else on top of patient owner, loyal owner, a guy that's going to give you the money to spend, Jacksonville, no income tax, pretty decent roster, Trevor Lawrence, all these other things that have always made this job pretty attractive outside of the Baalke stuff and everything else that happened. The other thing is, this team ain't bad. You can win in 25.
Right away.
You can win right away. I am convinced, and I've said it multiple times, and you can use it against me down the road. I'm convinced that this football team is going to be good in 25. My biggest question is this the guy in Liam Cohen that can make you good for 26, 27, 28, and the rest of the decade? The Jags, they've had a chance to be good. 22, Doug Peterson. 17, Doug Marrone. We've been able to do that in Jacksonville. You can't get 2 years of it. Is this the guy that's going to deliver that? But I'm telling you what, he's going to be off to a good start. He's going to do well in his first year. This team has its ears up. This team is hungry. This team is waiting for something to be kind of fueled with energy once again. I don't know why it got like that in 3 years or the second half of 23 into this year. I'm not sure. Was that Doug's fault? Is that a little bit on the players? I don't know. But they need a jump start. They need infused energy into that building and in the locker room. And once they get that and a little bit of health and luck, they are going to be a good football team in a bad division. There's a recipe for instant success is my point. And then you marry that with the idea that you've pretty much got 4 years, and it's kind of cool to open up a stadium. And then you list all the other things that make this job attractive. This is a really, really good place to be, and I think it turns out to be the right move for Liam Cohen. I'm not telling you, by the way, that Ben Johnson made the wrong move. I think Chicago has a lot of attributes in a similar way, not all the same, and reasons to go there. And we said that from the jump. The two jobs, in my opinion, that were comparable.
Yep.
Better way to say that. Was Chicago and the Jags. I think New England had some pieces like it as well. But those are the three jobs that were similar. The Raiders job is not similar. The Saints job's not similar. I don't even think the Dallas job's similar. And the Jets job's not similar.
Because if you would have, but that's the thing, because we're allowing Chicago to be almost on an even playing field with us. Like we're understanding why Ben Johnson went there. At the same time, as things currently stand without Balky, if Balky would have been gone from the jump, I think even nationally, we would have been put ahead of Chicago. Because then it's not only it's not even a Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams. It's Ben Johnson. You get to pick your GM. Every candidate you get to. It's not only Trevor Lawrence. It's not only the division. Not only the tax. Not only Jacksonville. Whatever. We would have became one of the only spots without a GM, because, like we've said, Chicago with Ryan Poles, Patriots, all of the good spots already had ones in place. If we were the only one of the good spots without a ton of baggage, without a GM, we would have been nationally regarded as the top destination for any head coaching candidate.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Hey, let's go reset this thing. Bottom line is, it looks like Liam Cohen is on his way to being the next head coach of the Jags. This has been a wild 30 hours in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. It's been a wild 3 days plus, I think, for Liam Cohen, as it sounds from some of the reports. The reports out there that these guys are close to getting a deal done. The reports out there that Tampa's mad. And many people are, the Bucs fans, I feel like, are all over the chat, at least, or our fans in Jacksonville, and Bucs fans are really going at it, which is entertaining in its own right here on the stream. But yeah, does it make it look not great the way it all went down because it's clunky? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, if it works out for both parties, that doesn't matter. And there's not always a great way to do this stuff. And I'm not making an excuse for Cohen here. I just think some of these things are clunky. Business can be clunky. They could not let it get out if there was serious interest, which I think there should have been. Once Balky was out of the building, there should have been serious interest from Liam Cohen. And they couldn't let that get out if they were doing a dance again. Mm-hmm. They couldn't. You can't trust anybody in the Bucs building. They would then have no loyalty if he went back. They would have sold it down the river and said, hey, he's going back there, or he's going to meet. And then what happens if it doesn't work out with Jacksonville? Now Jacksonville looks bad again. The only way they could have done this is for the Jags to reach out and say, hey, man, if we're going to do this, it has got to be super secret, super quiet. Because if you choose not to, even after what we pitch, we can't be publicly turned down again. So I don't know how those words get expressed, but I got to believe at some point it gets expressed that way. Mm-hmm. And then you dance a little bit and you talk a little bit, and he wouldn't consider again if he wasn't interested, right? And now you sweeten the pot, and now you're like, hey, you're going to create the alignment in this organization. You're not just a first-year head coach. You're not just 39 years old. You're going to set the tempo in this building. That's exactly why I said he made a mistake, even with Balky around, to not come in. And I don't think he's going to make the mistake twice. It looks like they're going to hire Liam Cohen as the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But let's say this. We gave the reason why he's young and why the Jags liked him. But what if fans like him? Like what if there's one thing you say, hey man, I like this hire because what?
Because the Bucs were top 5 in rushing and passing. Don't have to oversimplify it. They were an electric offense without unbelievable pieces. An electric offense without unbelievable pieces. They have mediocre weapons. Mike Evans is an unbelievable football player. But when he's out there all alone, and the second other option is a rookie after Chris Godwin gets hurt, well, you would expect that a 31-year-old Mike Evans is seeing a lot of attention from defenses in their offense didn't skip a beat. Well, you got two running backs that are good. They've proven to be good, but one's a rookie and one's in the second year. And they weren't first-round running backs by any means, the third, fourth round. And they didn't skip a beat. Mike Evans goes down as well. Oh, yeah, we'll just run the ball really efficiently, and we'll make K. Dot the guy for a couple weeks. No problem. He adapted. He adapted.
Yeah, I think one of the big reasons we liked Joe Brady in Buffalo, even more than Ben Johnson, the Ben Johnson part that was scary is they have such a good offensive line. And I'm not telling you the Bucs offensive line isn't good and the Bills isn't good. But it just felt like there was a pivot of sorts, and statistically it showcases it. See, the Lions were good last year too. They were good. They could run the ball. They've had multiple running backs come in there over the last few years and been able to score touchdowns. They've been able to figure it out on offense, kind of to your point, no matter who's in there. And that's a credit to Ben Johnson and that offense. But I think what makes the Bucs and Bills a little bit different is we've seen a pivot of sorts in some of the statistics, which makes you kind of like, okay, this guy can fix stuff. Hey, Jacksonville needs to be fixed. That's why they're looking for a coach. So if Buffalo can go midstream last year, make a change to Joe Brady, and this guy turns around their offense, they go on a run late in the season, and then he gets this addition of Josh Allen that's not turning the football over. James Cook is better than his brother.
Yeah.
I still say, I'm like, that's amazing to me. Dalvin Cook was a hell of a player coming out of college. James Cook is like the real deal.
Yep.
And Joe Brady and the Bills have made him that way or helped him make him that way. He has done his part. But now Josh Allen is an MVP candidate. You look at the Bucs and Liam Cohen, 32nd in rushing, and I think the previous year they were 31st or 32nd or not very good too, but they still had success offensively, defensively, and as a football team in a pretty weak NFC South. Well, they're fourth in rushing. Went from 32nd to fourth in rushing. That is significant. Austin Lane on our show each and every day going into the season last August said, hey, I know what they're doing. They want to run the ball. They want to run the ball. They want to take away all the pressure of Trevor. They want to help Trevor out. Okay, you got Tank Bigsby, you got Travis Etienne. It looked like in the preseason, hey, this is what they're going to be able to do. Go look at the numbers on Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. They were lost years, especially for Etienne. They couldn't run the ball. Their offensive line actually pass protected pretty well.
Yeah.
So I give credit to Doug Peterson and Press Taylor and others for saying, this is what we need to be. We need to run the ball more. They were trying to be like the Buffalo Bills or trying to be like the Bucs. But they couldn't get there. Is that personnel? Was that coaching? Was that scheme? Hey, listen, it could be a little bit of everything, right? So
Etienne 3.7 a carry, Bigsby 4.6.
Yeah, this guy took a rookie in Tampa, made him 1,000-yard back, and they go from 32nd in the league to 4th in the league.
And that was the big story against the Commanders that we've been talking about, is they were saying, look, the Bucs were 32nd in the league, and they were, and Cohen is primarily from his days in Kentucky and everything, is a downhill type. That's what he likes to do, running the football. Downhill, inside zone, in between the tackles, right? And he comes over about midway through, or maybe a fourth of the way through with the Bucs and says, no, these counter is better for these offensive linemen and for our backs. We're just going to run counter all the time. And that's what it was. They were running it for like 8 a pop against the Commanders, and that's what they were pretty much doing to teams the entire second half of this season. Cohen said, look, this is what I am. That doesn't mean I can't teach anything else and be successful at that too. So he adapts to the players. Like we've said, he's players, not plays. He kind of throws his running style out the window and says, hey, let's run counter with Bucky Irving. And Bucky Irving goes from, you might not have known who he was, Oregon running back, to one of the, you probably do know who he was because he probably won you a few bets or maybe a few fantasy football games.
Yeah.
As a waiver wire pickup in the first couple weeks. And they're top 5 in rushing. Well, Jacksonville has the guys. We got to have. Do we switch it up in the running game? Is that I would? That's if I wanted to hear one thing. Well, there's a lot of things that I would want to hear if I was a fly on the wall in that room. But it was like, hey, Liam, what do you think of our running game? How we have Tank and Etienne's in a contract year. How are we going to get these guys going? Because we have seen better from them in the past, and they've run stale. Bigsby was running looked incredibly fresh, was at the top of the charts through 6 weeks of the season as far as explosive runs, 20-plus yard runs, average, and he finished pretty poorly. How do we get back? That's the idea. At the end of the day, Trevor or not, the entire history of Jaguars franchise has been being able to run the football offensively. And,
and the league's going back that way.
And their league is going back that way.
We had 15 1,000-yard rushers this year.
Right.
Almost just as many as receivers.
Right. So it's not going to be line up and throw the ball over the yard. And that's why I think all of these candidates are somewhat desirable, because Josh Allen, Joe Brady with Josh Allen said, hey, I know Dorsey had you throwing it 50 times a game, but you're going to run it 10 or 12 times. James Cook's going to run it 20 plus. And Davis, the Kentucky running back, is going to run it a couple more times, and we're going to run it 40 times a game, and you'll throw it maybe 25. Well, that's kind of the balance that we think that would be successful in Jacksonville, and Cohen did the same thing in Tampa, and that's what there was the biggest offensive problem for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year is we didn't run enough plays because we couldn't convert on third down. Well, why is that? What was the biggest precipice of that was we couldn't run the ball on first down, and we couldn't run it on 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 or 2nd and 2, or we go backwards. We get 5 on first down, and then we go backwards. Cohen's huge. Stay on time, stay on schedule, stay ahead of the sticks, positive plays. If you watch Tampa, they rarely ever go backwards. They're always pushing the ball down the field. Might not be chunk play after chunk play. It seems like they kind of wear the defense down with the run game, and then all of a sudden there's Mike Evans for 25 over the middle. Or there's Cade Otton slipping out on a tight end slip screen for 25. And it just looks like his you could almost just pull his offense over here, and we could finally see offense in Jacksonville for the first time in really 20 years, other than a couple of weeks in the 2022 season.
Well, keep in mind, too, for people that are just jumping in the chat or haven't been in a little bit around the Jacksonville Jaguars and what's transpired over the last really couple of weeks, but Shad Khan, in a somewhat bizarre news conference over Zoom the day after the season where they retained Trent Baalke and nearly set off this just wild couple of weeks in Jacksonville, he also said that their offense is predictable. And so that's the other reason I think he's 35, 36, 38, 39-year-old guys are interested in. And again, I've said this. I think Todd Monken would be a nice hire around here. I think Todd Monken has the best resume of any of these guys over the last 4 years. But he's 58 years old. It feels different. 58 years old doesn't feel new, creative, everything else. 35, 36, 38, 39, those guys feel the new wave. And I think that's what he's going after here. Are they stuck on it so much? I mean, there are some reports like Diana Rossini, and these things are somewhat contradictory now. There are some people saying, hey, Baalke wasn't really that big of a factor in this as much as people think, even though Shad still made the move. It was more like, hey, we're going to pony up money and give you power. So Rossini's latest thing was, after the Jags did fire Trent Baalke, Jags called Liam Cohen, told him he could pick the GM, and offered him Ben Johnson money, which, by the way, would be around $13 million.
Stupid money.
Which would be 3 times as much money as he's making.
Plus.
Which even before, like we said, hey, the money at some point has to factor in for what a head coach makes. It is life-changing money. Now, $4.5 million a year ain't bad either. But it's different kind of money. So I think, I don't know what Rude Dog 1347 is trying to say. What is he saying there? Easy Brent and 54. What are you trying to say? I don't know what that means.
I'm 54.
Sorry about being old. Listen, man,
You're not a contention for the Jags.
I'm getting up there too. So I'm not slighting anybody. I'm just saying it how it is. They're throwing the bag at him.
Right.
And they're giving a lot of power to him. And listen, we can be excited in Jacksonville because this thing's turning, and it was a rough couple of days. But I do think there's a little bit of caution here because this isn't a franchise that always makes the right moves. Is this a little bit too much? We talked about this on the show today. We knew they were going to make a pitch last night into this morning for Cohen. Why wouldn't you go back if you fired Baalke, right? But do they have to be careful to be too desperate? In this, if true, where you're giving autonomy, which they were going to do for most coach anyway to come in here. That's why even if Baalke was in place, you could have moved him because you were going to have autonomy and coach-centric. But is this almost, we're showing you how much power we're going to give you, right? I mean, do you get to the point where you're like, we don't want to go urban now? You can't have too much power. You haven't even proved enough yet. You've never even been in this spot. So I wonder what the fine line is there, the dance there, the throwing of money. We don't care about the money. You don't know about the money. We don't know about the money. We don't, like, the money of coaches never gets talked about. It's really elevated now, though. I mean, just a few cycles ago, we're talking $5-6 million for a coach. Now we're talking $13 million for a coach, for a guy who's never done it. But I think there's reports out there like Andy Reid at the top of the chain is making $20 million a year, which you would say, okay, I get it. But now Ben Johnson and guys like Liam Cohen are resetting the market in terms of their price. So, yeah, this was a money play. This was a little bit of a power play, but this is the structure I want. If you want me, I've got to do it this way. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Because that means you got an alpha maybe in there.
Right.
Maybe it's his agent being the alpha, but you're going to have an alpha in there doing, hey, this is the way we're doing it. And my message is going to be to Liam Cohen, man. All this other stuff. See that color in the chat box? That gray? Don't have any of it. You do it this way or you do it that way. You don't do it somewhere in between. Too much gray over the last few years. Too much gray in that building. That's why I think transparency will be important. But I also think the players need that too. They need to know what it is, why it is, and how they're doing it and get it done. Or else. So I hope he leads like that. We don't know enough about him like that. But if you're going to command these kind of dollars, if you're going to command this kind of respect from Shad Khan, if you're going to command almost what feels a little desperation by the Jacksonville Jaguars, you got to deliver on those things. There's going to be an enormous responsibility once the fun and all this is over,
right?
To then settle in and get it done. And that we don't know. We don't know about a Ben Johnson in Chicago as well. So we're about to live and learn a little bit with Liam Cohen and the Ben Johnsons of the world, and we'll see if Joe Brady, otherwise. But it looks like it's turning, and it's going to this is got to get done now.
Yeah.
There is no going back.
No turning back.
I would be you want to just add to the chaos? If you like chaos and you don't care about the Jags or Jacksonville or the Bucks, if you're outside looking in on this and you're like, what in the world is happening?
Todd Bowles gets fired.
Well, I'm not even sure they would do that at the point.
No.
I wonder what would happen if Liam Cohen says no. And then they're like, well, guess what? That contract's done. You're out of here.
Yeah.
And then guess what?
Goes back to Kentucky?
Spy Tech and the Raiders come in and get him.
Oh, yeah. Or he goes back to Kentucky for a third stint.
Yeah. I mean, that would be unbelievable, right? It can't fall apart. In good faith, they have to get things done. But I'm telling you right now, the power's in the agent's hand. Because the Jags can't lose out on this. They can't lose out on this now.
They've pursued too hard.
How surprised are you? We knew that they were going to make a run, but how surprised are you that he actually is going to come back? We presented this. Why not? We talked about it for 3 hours earlier today. I thought it was in play. But in reality, when he's back in Tampa, it feels like it's hard. Guess what? It is hard. It's so hard that he's probably going to look bad in some of this. But how surprised should we be that by later tonight or early tomorrow, the Jags already have their coach, and it's the guy that said no thanks 36 hours ago?
Given Balky's firing, I don't think it's surprising.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that, again, Balky was the one stumbling block, and that's why I said earlier on the show this morning, I think Shad probably had his mind blown and was very surprised with the league's response and the candidates' response to Balky, that it was a shock to him. Obviously, we think that he has been a little bit numb at times to the noise around Balky. Obviously, that's why he kept him as long as he's kept him. That's why he pointed the entire finger and all of the blame at Doug Peterson. So I believe it was a shock to Shad to learn that nobody wants to, or I shouldn't say nobody, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, and Liam Cohen most likely did not want to work with Balky. Once he removes Balky, at that point, I think it's a no-brainer. Because in Shad's mind, he's thinking, there's one thing keeping Liam Cohen from being the next Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. It's Trent Baalke. Well, once Trent Baalke's gone, there's no excuse anymore. There's no reason why Liam Cohen wouldn't want the job. And again, with the confidence that Shad has in this roster, in Trevor Lawrence, in this team, the entire time, Baalke in or out, I believe Shad thought this was the top destination for a head coaching candidate. So especially,
you said that a lot today.
Especially when you take Baalke out, Shad knows. Without a shadow of a doubt, Shad believed that this was the top space, top job. So if Cohen's his top guy, then to Shad, it's not even a decision. Baalke's gone. There's nothing in the way anymore. I'm gonna go get my guy. It's gonna be a dumb deal. He's gonna want to be here, and let's go. Let's make it happen fast.
Hey, by the way, Timmy Devil, glad to have you back, but where the hell you been? I mean, we've been back for a year with Austin. If you only like Austin on the show, he'll back 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. every day. Sorry, but you got to deal with us tonight on a little breaking news. But Austin's back each and every day. So glad to have you back if you come back here on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network and streaming, of course, on YouTube, everywhere else. Greg Allman, who covers the Bucks, just said, hey, the Jags and the Bucks don't play until 2027 in Jacksonville. Well, that actually won't be in Jacksonville. That'll either be in Orlando or Gainesville, which I think we'll soon find out in the next couple of months at the next owners' meetings down in South Florida where that ends up being, but that's in the works right now. I still think it's going to end up in Orlando, but you never know. With the new UF Health relationship with the Jags and everything else, it could end up in Gainesville, so I think we'll get more on that. It's okay, Timmy Devil. I'm not. I don't take it personally either way. We're just glad to have you back.
That's right.
Just glad to have you back. And if you couldn't find Austin, he is back usually during the morning. Seriously, he's down in fight camp right now. He's got another UFC fight coming up in the next couple of months. So he is training, but still joining the show each and every day. Brent Martineau, Jason Hamby here, Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Hey, it's just wild. I don't know if anybody's got any questions, because I think we'll probably do is get out of here a little bit and let everybody get on with their night. I don't know if we can offer too many more things.
Brent, answer your own question real quick. How surprised are you that Shad pursued this hard and this quickly after parting with Balky?
Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I didn't. If when this thing came down at 6:08, when I started seeing it and hearing about it, and I wasn't like, really? Like, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for that. Now, I wasn't ready for the bulky move at the time it came either. Like, we can think that some of these things are going to happen. My time frame in my head, though, let's not lose Nathan's question. I assume we won't be making any trades with Tampa anytime soon. Okay, it wasn't really a question. It's more of a statement. You're probably right. I thought if they got, what did we say this morning on the show? If they get Cohen, it's the only, Cohen coming back into the fold is the only chance they have a coach by the weekend.
Right.
That's what we said.
Right. Or else they'll just open it up.
Either that or you're taking a step back, you felt it out with Cohen. He said, hey, man, I'm going to stay. I appreciate you coming back, but I'm going to stay. $4.5 million. I like the situation here. I think it would be clunky. Obviously didn't mind that, but I thought it would, I'm going to stay. And then you interview Graham. You interview Saleh tomorrow, who, by the way, looks like he might not even be coming and is going to be hired as the coach of San Francisco as a defensive coordinator. He's had that offer waiting. And he looks like he's going to get that according to Mike Silver. I also have been telling you all week, I don't think he's taking the DC job in Jacksonville. So he's either getting the head coach job or nothing. But it looks like he's not even going to come because he's seen all the things that are happening. And before you knew it, by the way, the other agents probably knew it too. So he knew it well before most likely the rest of the public was finding this out around 6 o'clock tonight. So I just thought, yeah, now we're looking at maybe a 7, 8, 9, 10-day process. Maybe it's go get Joe Brady. Maybe it's go get Monken. Maybe it's go get Kellen Moore. Maybe it's even figure out about Mike McCarthy. Slow down, take your time. Get Tony Boselli involved in the process. That came out today, of course, that he's part of that. Ethan Waugh, Shad Khan. No need to rush. There's really not a lot of competition for those other guys. So, yeah, I would say I'm not surprised they went after him. I'm surprised they were able to get it done. Because really, let me phrase it to you this way. If I had told you this morning the scenario that has actually played out, that, hey, they reach back out and they're going to, like, in the cloak of darkness, really the cloak of daylight, they're going to secretly meet. Tampa's going to not be able to find them. According to reports, they offered a contract, or they got the contract done like Monday night. Not done, but the offer to increase the salary and keep him. That's why he didn't come to the second interview. And I tell you all those things. And, but by the way, by Thursday night, by tonight, don't worry, there'll be breaking news that he's going to be the guy. He's in the building. And they're about done with it. And they're getting close. If I had told you that this morning at 10 o'clock on the Brent and Austin show, you would have thought I was out of my mind. So I think there is a surprise element to how this got done, how fast it got done, that it actually is getting done. Because here's another thing, Jags fans, and you know this. Good things don't always happen around here.
It's true.
And this feels like a pretty good thing. We won't know if it's a good thing, but it does feel like a pretty good thing. I said at the top of the show, I said it on Twitter earlier tonight, this is one of the best comebacks in Jags history. And they came back from 27-0 down in the playoffs to the Chargers just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But this one was engineered by Shad Khan. And a hat tip to Shad and his staff and everybody else that was involved in this to be able to flip it from what looked like a crap show here in Jacksonville, publicly was getting abused and just made fun of and egg on their face yesterday at about 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And in the last now 30 hours, they have shifted to, let's go down to the stadium and buy season tickets. I mean, come on, right? I mean, that's crazy.
Just finish the job.
And now you got to finish the job. And hey, I'm going to say it again. Apologies for repeating, but there's still more to be done.
Right.
Like, if this does get done, there's more to be done. Where are you putting Boselli? How are you crafting that role? The importance of that role to me is significant. How you craft it, what you label it, what it's supposed to be and do is important. And it's not just shoving a guy in a position. Then you got to figure out the GM spot, and that thing has to work. And that has to be good. And then Liam Cohen has to figure out a staff. I don't think this clunky situation hurts him in acquiring a staff. This is still opportunities for other people to grow in their profession. So I don't think this hurts him in any respect, but you got to put together a good staff, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, calling plays. The Jags have to fix that. They were bad last year. And then there are other little things that, again, I've talked about ad nauseum and will continue to shout in hopes that they are getting done by maybe a Boselli in the front office, by the new GM, by the head coach, by the organization. And that is messaging, vision, mission statement, transparency, relationships. Man, one of the first stops, I'm gonna Liam Cohen, if you're watching right now, one of the first stops you make once you enter that building as a new head coach of the Jaguars is to go shake hands with those season tickets salespeople. Things like that we won't even see, but they got to do. He's got to do. This new regime will have to do. And I'm not telling you that those other guys never did it before, but I just think it needs to be done. Things like that need to be done better here in Jacksonville. And I think a lot of people laugh at that stuff, honestly. They're like, yeah, whatever, Brent, that doesn't lead you to Sundays winning touchdowns. No, but it buys you equity when you're not scoring touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And we just watched a regime not have much equity at all. There's a bigger picture thing here that these folks need to know about this town, about how things operate in Jacksonville, maybe different than other places, and how big the Jags are, and how loud it gets when it's good and when it's bad. So there's a lot of moves still to be made, in my opinion, here in Jacksonville. But wow, what a turn over the last 24 hours plus. Firing Trent Baalke and potentially now on the verge of hiring Liam Cohen and fitting Tony Boselli. I think this is all happening almost at the same time in the front office in some capacity. And a reminder that, yes, John Spytek, Duval Jags, and the Raiders, his deal isn't done, Spytek, but they still have to go through the process of getting a GM. Will Spytek wait? Will that be clunky? Does Spytek want to go through what Cohen just went through here today? Interesting, and I think would be developing, but not an overnight thing. Like, I would be shocked if there's a GM in place anytime super soon. Mm-hmm. That thing has to play out a little bit. So, again, there's a lot more to come here with this potential news here in Jacksonville. But, man, is it good news? How about that? I mean, it could potentially be really good news back-to-back days for the fans. And, I mean, Shad, approval rating yesterday at 2:30 compared to approval rating right now at 8:45, and Tony Boselli's approval rating.
That's 100% true.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Hopefully my approval rating never dipped that far.
But he's pulling off crypto-type charts. Tanked, right. And now it's right back up.
Hey, Delphonic, if the announcement comes at 1 a.m., you can take tomorrow off. We ain't taking tomorrow off, man.
Shot.
Let's go. We're ready. So we'll have more of it. Here's the deal. We're going to get more tonight on CBS 47 and Fox 30. We're on at 10 o'clock on Fox 30, 11 o'clock CBS 47. And then tomorrow, 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. On the Brent and Austin show. Austin will join us. And then we got the rest of that Friday lineup right there. Includes Stadium Pulse and maybe even a dip into the college days of Liam Cohen by Jason Hamby. I'm actually setting your rundown for you.
Howdy, baby.
Maybe you work a little college into that.
All right.
Because once again, coached in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl with Kentucky last year at Everbank Stadium. There's the lineup, Fleet and Footy replay as well, coming up tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Jacksonville Armada Talk and Soccer Talk with Stuart Weber. Young and Norvell Show, Patrick Young and Terry Norvell will have the conversation continued. And it all starts with Miller and Moulton in the morning, 6 a.m. until 9 a.m. That'd be a long show, 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. Miller and Moulton in the morning on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Now, all those shows are not necessarily on YouTube where you're listening or Twitter where you're listening. You got to go to actionnewsjax.com, the Action News Jax app. Action News Jax now on your smart TV. If you have Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, you see that up in the top right corner. You can be watching from your living room right now. Your wife might not be happy if she's listening to me for the last hour, but you can watch from your smart TV as well. Anything on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. All right, Liam Cohen. Is he going to be the guy? Will we know in the next couple of hours? Will we have to get a sleep on it first until it becomes official? I would probably gauge yes. But it certainly is trending in a way that right now the Jags and Liam Cohen are doing a dance where they can't come back from. They have got to get this thing done. They both will look really bad in the public eye if they don't get this done. And they might still in some respects, but that's okay if you get it done. And then you move on. Jacksonville Jaguars, Liam Cohen could be the next head coach of the football team here in Jacksonville. For Jason Hamby, Terry Lynch, we appreciate him joining us from Rhode Island. We're going to try to keep getting some guests and more insight on Liam Cohen, maybe some of the folks in Tampa as well over the next day or so. And obviously we'll be all over this story, and it continues tonight on CBS 47 and Fox 30. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us.